am super excited to share this new video today about how I edit. So I'm going to be showing you how I edit a shoot. This is a quick shoot, but I'm going to show you how I edit in Lightroom. So if you would like me to share more videos like this, more tutorials on how to edit in Lightroom, different skin tones, different lighting situations, different locations, be sure to like this video and also subscribe to my channel and let me know if you would like me to create more of these. So I did a shoot a little while ago with my trainer. We went to a park and shot some fitness type photos. So I'm going to go ahead and edit these and just take you along with me. So the first thing that I usually will do is apply my preset. I do like to start with a preset instead of starting from scratch, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to start from scratch so you can kind of see what my process is and maybe some techniques that you can pick up along the way. So the first thing I will do is basically I will adjust the image. So I like to do that even before I apply the preset, so it just looks nice and straight. I'll do any cropping, any adjusting just to make sure everything is good. Now I try to sometimes use the rule of thirds, so basically just making sure the image is framed properly within these grid lines. So it just looks more it just looks more appealing. And then I usually start with an auto adjust and just make sure the horizon is straight, or if it is water, that the line here in the background is straight. It does look like it is a little tiny bit off, so I'm just going to adjust it a little bit. It happens sometimes, but I try to make sure the lines are straight with the grid. And then I will start editing. So I'm going to go down to the tone curve here and just brighten the image up a little bit. We did have some harsh sunlight, so I want to soften it up just a little bit. So I'm going to brighten it here, and I like to create like an S curve here in the tone curve. I don't like to bring the blacks down too much, although I do like to, especially if I'm editing darker skin tones or brown skin tones, I do like to bring those the blacks and the midtones down just a bit, so we don't wash out the skin, especially in like bright lighting situations. It can really wash out more darker skin tones. So that looks pretty good to start with. I'm going to bring the highlights down a little bit, again, because we were shooting in harsh sunlight. So I want to kind of soften those harsh lines a bit. So I'm going to bring the highlights down. I do still want the image to be a little bit bright, so I'm going to lift the shadows just a bit here. That looks good. I think I'm going to leave the whites alone, so it still looks nice and bright. And then I'm going to leave the blacks alone there. I'm going to increase the clarity. I just like to do that. I just like for the image to look pretty sharp. And then let's see. I think I'm going to increase the vibrance. So that's basically just going to make the colors in the image richer, more vibrant. Self-explanatory, but I think I'm gonna increase it just a bit here to plus 20, and you can see a before and after of how everything's looking so far. So nothing too crazy, and I do a very natural edit. I like for the images to look as true to like if you were looking at it with the naked eye. So I will say the water here is a little bit bluer than I would like. So I'm going to go down to the HSL color and I'm going to click on blue and I'm going to turn the saturation down just a bit. Now it is impacting the sky, so I'm going to adjust that as well. But you'll notice, like, if I turn the saturation down, you won't see any blues at all, which we don't want that. I just want to turn the saturation down just a tad. So that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to go down here. I'm not going to really do anything else in this section, but I am going to check these two, remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. So that just makes sure, like, if there's any vignetting, and also if there's any like for overexposure, if there's any colors that are just not looking natural, it will correct it there. And that is some of the basics that I will do. Now, if I want to, I can add some contrast just to really bring the skin tone in and really make her pop in the image. But again, because it's really harsh skin tones, I think I'm going to leave the contrast alone. But I do want to bring in the blue from the sky a bit. So I really love this masking tool. This is a new update from Lightroom. It's been a few months now, but you can actually adjust quite a few things. I don't personally use Photoshop, so I do like that Lightroom is incorporating some of those features that Photoshop has, but it's all in one, it's all in Lightroom. So I'm going to adjust the sky, and you can click on this masking tool here, and then under add new mask, you can select sky, and it will actually detect the sky in the image. Now, it's not always accurate, but it is pretty accurate. So I really like to use that, especially if the sky is a little bit blown out or it's just not looking the way I would like, and I want to make some adjustments or try to see if I can bring some of the details in the sky back in. So I'm going to, because I want to make the sky more blue, I'm going to adjust the temperature here. So I'm just going to bring the temperature closer to the blue to like -30. I think I like that. That looks pretty good. And here's a before and after. I'm actually going to go back in and maybe bring it down a little bit more so we get a nice blue sky. And that looks pretty good. It looks a little more almost turquoise in the raw image. So I'm going to make it look a little bit more muted. Now, because we have a lot of blue in this image, in the water, the gray is kind of like a blue, and then she's wearing gray, which is kind of like, it's just making it look very monochrome, which is totally fine. I think I want to warm up the image a little bit overall. So I'm going to adjust the temperature and just make it a tad bit more warm. You can also see her skin tone change a bit, which is totally fine. And then I'm also going to just smooth out her skin tone a bit. She is not wearing makeup, so she has very beautiful natural skin, but I am going to smooth it out just a little bit, reduce some of the shine. So I'm going to go back up here to the masking tool, and I'm going to create a new mask. You don't want to start here because then it's going to adjust the initial mask, or it's not going to do anything at all. So I'm going to click create new mask, and I'm going to select the brush. Now you can select the subject if you want to just do it all in one, but I don't want to necessarily smooth out her clothing. I mean, you can, but I'm not going to do that. So I just want to adjust her skin locally. So I'm going to click the brush, and then I'm going to select the Soften Skin Light tool. And then I like these settings, so I'm not going to mess with them. Now you can adjust the size of the brush, which I'm going to do here. Just make it a little bit smaller so it doesn't affect anything else in the image. And then I'm just going to brush over her skin. And very lightly, like it's not anything too drastic. but just enough to, you know, make it look nice and smooth and all in one. You can get way more dramatic if you want. I know for fitness folks, they like for you to see, you know, muscle definition and all that. So I also don't want to lose that. So that's why I'm just very lightly smoothing out her skin. So here is a before and after. I'm also going to add some texture to her curls, her hair. So you can see a pretty good definition in her hair. Her curls are definitely popping, but I'm going to just add a little bit more texture. So I'm going to create another mask. I'm going to click brush, and then I'm going to go down to texture. And this is a tool that I created, a preset, if you will, that I created for hair texture. You can adjust it here. So I have it at the highest at 100. But you can adjust it, let's say down to 50, which is actually what I'm probably going to do, because you can already see a good amount of definition in her hair. And then I'm just going to brush over it so you can really see that texture. And then I click done. And here is a before and after. And I really like this image. Now I could go in and remove some of the spots on the ground, you know, remove some of these lines. I'll remove this one here. So the way that you can do that is you click this Band-Aid here. This is the healing tool. And you can either heal or clone. I'm going to click heal and just see how well it cleans up this line here. Now we have some other things going on, such as the lines on the ground. We've got a shadow. So I'm going to try to see if I can just quickly clean this up. That looks pretty good. Now you'll see when I move the area that it's trying to use as a sample to heal it, it is making a little bit of an adjustment there. You can still see the line a little bit. So what I'm going to do is click on clone and see if that cleans it up a little bit better, which it looks like it does. I could clean it up more, but I kind of like the roughness of the area. And again, the focus is really on her. Now I can brighten this up a little bit and bring some of the whites in. I do like to edit more light and airy. But I don't want to wash out her skin tone, so I'm just going to increase the exposure a little bit to like plus 20, and I think that looks pretty good. So here's a before and after. I really like how that came out and how it's kind of warmed up, especially for like an outdoor. You want it to look more warm than cool, in my opinion. I could also make the greens a little more green by going down to HSL color and clicking on the green, and then just moving the slider for the saturation up a bit. So you'll see this is on max, like plus 100. This is if you wanted to really mute it out, minus 100. I'm gonna bring this up to like 20, maybe 30, so you can really see like a plush green. You can also change the hue so you can make it look more vibrant or more, just more muted. So more towards like the yellow green or more like a money green or something. I like for it to look more natural, but just a little bit more vibrant. So we'll do like a plus 10. I think that's good. All right, so here is a final before and after. I really like how this turned out. So the next thing I'm going to do is apply these settings to the next few images. So you'll see down here, there's quite a few images in the same location. She's just doing like different poses. And then I also got some close up, some far away. So just to speed up the editing process, I'm going to apply these settings. Actually, first I'm going to export the image to my computer so I don't lose it, lose the settings. So I'm going to click File and Export. And then I'm going to just save it to the folder I created on my computer and click choose. Here are my file settings. So resolution is 300 pixels per inch. And I have the quality at 100. And then I'm going to click export. Now that it has exported, I'm going to make sure the image that has already been edited is selected first. And then I'm going to click Shift on my keyboard, hold that down, and then click on the remaining images that I want to apply the same settings to. Now you can go to settings and then sync settings. And I'm going to pretty much keep everything that's already selected. Now you can select the masking tool as a part of your synchronized settings, but because I did some local adjustments like her skin tone and that kind of thing, I'm not going to select all of them, but I am going to select mask 1, which I believe is the sky. Let's see if I'm right. I'm also not going to select crop or spot removal. I'm just going to select the basic edits, and then you just click synchronize and it will apply the settings here to the images. So it just speeds up your editing process so you don't have to do as much. And again, you don't have to edit from scratch. So you can see that the settings have been applied when you see this little plus minus square in the bottom corner. So now I'm going to select the next image. Now you want to make sure only one is selected. So if you do make any additional adjustments, it's not affecting all of the images. So I'm just going to go back through and adjust and crop and just make sure everything is looking good. I did apply the mask tool, so I'm going to go back over here, and you will have to, even though it's applied, you will have to update it so it can be recomputed. So you just click on the mask and you'll see where it says Sky 1 needs to be recomputed. So I click update and it should update the sky, which it did. So that's pretty much it. Other than the skin, I'm going to just go back through and smooth out her skin. So I'm going to click brush, soften skin light, and just brush over her face here, her arms. Very light edit, nothing too crazy. Just gives a nice uniform look. And then I'm going to go up here, create another brush for her hair, and just brush over that. Nice definition there. And that's looking good. I'm going to export, and you don't have to export the images individually. I'm just showing you for the sake of habit here so you can kind of learn the technique. So I'm just adjusting these here. I do want to see some of the water, so this isn't going to be perfectly aligned. I don't like that the tree is kind of peeking out here in the corner, so it's going to be slightly off, but I'm okay with that. Again, going to update the sky and smooth out the skin. And you can be as detailed or as, you can do this however you want. Adjust the hair. And that's looking good. So for the sake of this, I'm going to move on to the other images so you can see how I edit different as the lighting changed. So we did move to a different angle And as you can see, my settings didn't necessarily adjust to this because I was shooting in manual. So I'm going to start with those settings that we did here and just see how much adjusting I would need to make. I know for sure I'm probably going to have to adjust the shadows. So it did make the image brighter, and I actually really like how this looks. You can still see a lot of the details in the image. It's not washing her skin tone out too much, but I am going to lift the blacks a little bit, just so we can see a little bit more of her skin. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm gonna increase this to +40, and then I'm gonna bring the shadows down just a little, down to like +20, and that looks pretty good. It still looks natural. I'm going to then, I am gonna try the mask tool. Let's see what it does with the sky. So that looks good. I do want the sky to look the same, even in different lighting scenarios. And then I would just smooth out her skin and then apply the settings. We have another image here, again, that the lighting changed because the sun is now behind me. And also I was shooting in manual, so it didn't auto adjust to the lighting. So I just applied the settings here. I'm not loving how these settings are looking on this particular image. So I'm going to increase the exposure and just see how I'm liking the exposure. I think that looks pretty good. I am going to, because it's bothering me, I'm going to adjust the greens in the grass next. So I'm going to, I like for the grass to look more green than yellow. So I'm going to make this like a richer green, and then I'm going to turn the saturation down a bit. I still want to see the green. You can also adjust the luminance so it looks a little darker, a little more natural, especially if the sun is shining pretty bright on the grass. And then I'm going to go over to the yellows because I can tell the grass has a little bit of a yellow tint. And I'm going to reduce the yellows a little bit down to like -10. And here's a before and after so far. Now this image isn't going to be as bright because, again, the sun is shining behind her, so it's not going to give that nice bright look that we saw in the other images, but that's okay. So I'm really going to kind of leave this as is. I think we could probably bring the highlights up a little bit. We're not going to see as much definition in the sky in this image. I do think we can increase the contrast a little bit. So I'm going to bring it up to like +10. I don't want it to be too dark, but I like that. And then I'm going to, let's see what happens if we apply the sky tool. So we can't really see anything, but if I bring down the highlights, we can see a little bit of the blue in the sky. So I'm going to bring that down to like -60, just so we see a little bit of sky and it's not just like totally blown out. And then I'm going to smooth out the skin. Let me zoom in. Smooth out her arm. You'll see it's very, very light here. Kind of scroll up, smooth her face. And then while I'm here, I'm going to increase the texture in her hair. and you'll see, you can definitely see a little bit more definition there. And that looks pretty good. I think I want to saturate her skin a bit more. So I'm going to bring the oranges up to +10. And then I'm going to come back up here and let's see what happens if I increase the exposure a little bit more to like 1.5. Oh, it's a little washed out. So I'm going to bring that back down to 1.35. And I like that. I think that looks pretty good. And then I would just apply those same settings there. We have a few more. So this is a different lighting situation. I'm going to apply the previous preset and just see what that does, if I need to make any adjustments. So that looks pretty good, pretty natural. We do have a lot of brightness on the ground here, on the floor and on the boards. So I'm going to bring those highlights down for now. I'm also going to increase the contrast here because the lighting isn't as harsh. I'm also going to lift the shadows a little bit so we can see more of her skin and face. And then I like the greens in the grass, so I'm not going to do anything there. I want to get some more, I want to fix this part of her hair. So instead of increasing the texture, I am going to create a new mask tool, and I'm going to choose shadows, and I'm going to bring the shadows down to like -20, and then I'm going to brush over it and see. So it doesn't look as shiny from the sun, and it kind of matches the other side of her hair a little bit better. I can even bring the shadows down a bit more. I don't want to lose the definition in her hair, but you can see a difference there. It just looks more natural. And then let's see if we can bring the exposure up just a tiny bit. I think that looks good. I'm going to come back down here and increase the saturation in her skin to +10. And then I would just smooth out her skin and go from there. So I hope this is helpful. That's really the main adjustments that I would make to these images. If you have any questions about how I edited these, you have any techniques that you like to do, especially in harsh sunlight, leave a comment down below. And again, let me know if you would like me to create more of these tutorials on how I edit in Lightroom. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.